Welcome back. This is episode number 349 of the Healthy Diabetic Podcast. I'm Coach Ken. I am by myself today. Graham is not with me today, but we do have a guest, and we're going to introduce her in just a second. If you're brand new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. And if you don't know much about our story, Graham and I are two type 1s that have almost 50 years of lived experience with type 1 diabetes. We talk anything and everything diabetes on this show, and we really hope that we can inspire you to think differently about how you manage this condition. Before we get started, please remember that nothing that you hear on this podcast should be considered medical advice or otherwise. Please always consult your medical team before making any changes to your diabetes management. So I got to sit down with Selena, a type 1 diabetic, woman's fitness model, personal trainer, spin instructor, and a one-on-one online fitness coach. She's just got all these hats. She's wearing all kinds of hats. Stephanie and I talked about her diagnosis story, how diabetes has shaped her life on a personal level, the state of the medical system, and what gaps we feel need to be filled in that system, even from her perspective, not even being in the US. And since Stephanie and I are both from the fitness industry, we discussed in length how to manage diabetes during exercise, how we personally focus on keeping our blood sugars in range and stable during our workouts. And we also talked about how different our management styles are from each other. Lots of great nuggets in this episode. I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. So without further ado, let's get with Selena.
I'm Stephanie, and basically, for my diagnosis, I got diagnosed only 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I was like 30, I think. And basically, it kind of just came out of nowhere, to be honest. Like, I was on holiday, but my boyfriend's Bulgarian. So we'd went over to Bulgaria, and I got one of my wisdom teeth removed. The surgery didn't go as planned, and I got a dry socket at the end as well, which made it worse. And then all of a sudden, the symptoms started, and I was peeing through the night and so thirsty. But I just thought I was on holiday and I just drank too much. And, you palm it off as normal, whatever, something's going on, but nothing drastic. And
Yeah.
it didn't stop. And then when I got home, I started craving sugar constantly. Like I just couldn't eat enough. I was shaking, so thirsty, peeing constantly. And I kept saying to my mum, like, the only disease I know that has this is diabetes, but that's genetic. I don't have diabetes, so it's not that.
Yeah.
My mum was like, actually, that's what I think it might be. And I was like, surely not. Anyway, so I phone up the doctors. I'm like, right, can I please have a test because I have all the symptoms and I don't know what's going on. And because of COVID, they do all this like, you can't get an appointment unless you're in an emergency sort of situation here because our healthcare is all free. So then basically I couldn't get a hold of them. So then I phoned back a week later, being like, this is getting worse. Don't understand what's going on. Like, I need to see a doctor. And they were like, no, you're not an emergency. That's not happening. So I phoned up. They have like a telephone system. You can call up with problems and someone will kind of ask you like a myriad of questions and then try and like pinpoint you to the right direction. So I went through all of that and they were like, you can't diagnose yourself with this disease. That's not a thing, blah, blah, blah. That's it. Like, there's nothing we can do. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, my weight had dropped as well. Like, I think I'd lost like a full stone. So that's like 6.35 kilos, like,
Yeah.
in which is
That's a lot of weight
crazy.
in 2 weeks. Yeah.
So I was like, that's not normal. And then again, nothing. So then I tried to change doctors. That's what it was. And in the process of doing that, I mean, I couldn't get an appointment with my old doctor because they were like, you're no longer registered here. But the new doctor had so much like backlog of appointments. So I call back the telephone system. I'm like crying on the phone. Like, I don't understand. Like, I think I'd woke up, I just peed the bed actually that night because it got to that kind of point where I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is not normal now. Like, that's not a normal thing for someone in their 30s to not, wake up and go to the bathroom. So then the guy was like, right, let me phone your doctors and see if I can get you a telephone appointment. See, as soon as I got a contact with a GP and spoke to a person, they were like, come down to the surgery right now. Went down, did the test for the blood and the pee, and they were like, you need to go to hospital, like now. And then when I got there, they were like, how are you still standing up? my ketones were like 27. I don't know what the measurements are in America. And then my blood sugar was like in the 30s. But I think you times it by 18 or something for
Mhm.
your lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is mental." And the woman was like, You stink. Like, the ketones on your breath, like, you smell so bad." And then I ended up in hospital on a drip and getting all my insulin in next morning, got diagnosed. I was like, "I knew this, like, 3 weeks ago." And
Yeah.
it's took me 3 weeks of fighting to get this diagnosis. Like, why don't you just test a finger prick? Now that I actually have my diagnosis and I have my blood monitor and all the rest of it, I'm like, it takes 2 seconds to check someone's blood sugar and be like, "Are you normal?"
Mhm.
Like, I don't understand why it wasn't caught sooner, but oh well. And that was that. And then I got referred to my care team. We get like a diabetic nurse, endocrinologist, like all that kind of jazz. But they kind of set it up like a prescription service where they tell you take 4 units for insulin and have 3 meals a day. Make sure your meals are really carby. But I'm really a small eater, so I was taking all this insulin and having what I would consume as a normal meal and just having low blood sugar. I couldn't walk more than 2 steps without having a hypo. So I was like, "This is insane. Like, this can't be life." So I went to my appointment because you have like a regular kind of stream when you first get diagnosed here. And then they referred me to a dietitian because they were like, "Right, you're obviously not able to go with what we plan because you don't eat enough for the insulin that we're prescribing. And that's what's
Yeah.
happening." So then I got taught like about carb counting and tracking straight away so that I could manage my diabetes myself, which was really good for me because I just got super independent with my management from the start because they said they don't want to like give you too much information too quickly. But I'm a qualified personal trainer at the time as well, so I was a bit like I kind of understood about tracking calories and using like my fitness pal and stuff, so it wasn't completely alien to me. So as
Mhm.
soon as I got up and running on my own, like it was great, and I started tweaking my own rates and tweaking all my like carb to insulin ratios and my background insulin as I needed to, and
Mhm.
then just kinda kept going from there.
Wow. Wow. First thing, I think it's still insane regardless of where we are in the world, especially I mean, it's not like you're in a, poor country, right? It's one of these things that it happens all the time in the US too. It's like, you don't get the support at the beginning that you need.
Right.
And it's so crazy to me that that is still a thing all over the country, even or all over the world, even from your perspective, even 3 years ago. Now, obviously, maybe you wouldn't have had that type of situation if it wasn't during COVID, if it wasn't COVID-esque, post COVID
Yeah.
or whatever. But I think it's crazy that the like I can just hear that story all the time, Stephanie. Like all the time I hear that type of story where someone is
Yeah.
like either misdiagnosed or they're, especially having a latent adult diagnosis, right? Misdiagnosed, not getting the support. Like in the US for adult care, like we're lucky if we get 24 or 48 hours in the hospital. Like, and we're supposed to get educated and like it's there's no way. It's crazy to me that this is still a thing.
I know, it's mental. Like, I didn't get anything really. Like, I got a nurse come to my bedside, show me how to inject myself, taught me about the difference between the pens and which one to take because I had background insulin that I had to take in the morning and in the evening, and then the orange one for, like, meal times. Well, it's like Nova Rapid. I don't know if that's just like a
Mhm.
type of insulin. And that was it. And then she was like, "Are you comfortable to do that yourself?" I was like, "Well, yeah." And she's like, "Right, cool, that's you. That's discharged. Bye.
Uh,
Someone will contact you in the next few days." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." So like you're still going home, not really knowing what to do. And then obviously they treat you everybody the same with the just eat carby food, take X amount of insulin, which is obviously just cookie cutter, and then expect you to just kind of go with it. But
yeah.
it's mad. Obviously, because it wouldn't work for me, I got more personalized management and then became a lot more independent with my management. But when I went on my Omnipod 5, I got that after like 2.5 years on the waiting list at the end of the year, just before Christmas. And it was just before I started my bodybuilding prep. So I was like really, really wanting it because I think I had no idea how I was going to manage that on multiple
Mhm.
daily injections. I was
Yeah.
like, "That's so crazy because the amount of hypos I could have are meaning that I'm gonna go over my calories all the time, and then I'm not gonna have the weight loss that I'm supposed to have, etcetera." And I went on it, and I remember I got the Omnipod, and they gave you this box, and they were like, "Right, okay, keep it till your, like, email comes through with your Zoom call situation," where
Mhm.
everybody all went on with the nurse, and they explained how it worked and what to do and gave us all our individual rates from our care teams. And me being independent enough with my diagnosis and extremely impatient was like, "Wait, you've given me the new toy that's going to sort out my blood sugars and tell me to wait an indefinite amount of time until you tell me how to set this up when there's Google." I was like, not a chance. So I like opened it, figured out what I was doing. I'd watched so many TikToks. The Klutzy chick, I think her name is. She's a Canadian, like, a diabetic TikToker, and I'd watched her change her her Omnipod so many times. I was like, I could do that in my sleep. So I just went on Google to figure out what the calculations were for your insulin, like, recommendations, and kind of worked it out. And I was like, does that sound kind of what I would have? And I was like, that sounds all right. So I kind of erred on the lower side to start with and
Mhm.
just like put it on. I had my Omnipod on for 2 weeks before I got my, like, induction. And then when they gave me all the rates and stuff, and I was like, oh, I've already figured all that out myself.
That's so crazy. When I went on the Omnipod 5, I'm not on it anymore, but when I went on the Omnipod 5, I told like my doctor was like, we can get you set up for like to go over here. We see like they call them tech specialists or whatever in the doctor's office and they schedule them because they're only there like once a week or something like that, once every couple weeks. It's like, well, you want me to schedule this? I was like, nope, I got it. So when my box came, like it came with a QR code with videos on how to set it up, like
Yeah.
virtually. And I
Yeah.
just went through all that and I was like, okay, I'm good, done.
That's what I was like. Was sitting on this thing for ages when she was giving it everybody's individual
Yeah.
insulin to carb ratio, explaining that you don't need as much hypo treatments as normal because the pump switches your insulin off before you kind of go hypo and all the rest of it. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, some of the information, I was like, great, love that. That'll help put the pieces together. But like, I was already up and running. It was so funny, like, sitting there just kind of, I had my camera off and everything. She was like, "Stephanie, you're not really engaging in this group session." Like, I didn't want to tell her that I'd been using it before I was meant to.
Well, why not? I would have been like, yeah, I already did it, everything. Like I've been using it for 2 weeks. My blood sugars are great. Like, what do you want me to say? Uh,
So,
I would have loved that situation and had that conversation with the nurse because she probably would not known what to say. Like, oh my gosh, well, did you do this? Yep. Did you do this? Yep. Did you do this? Yep. Okay, I don't know what to do.
I think some people are just so confident because something I realized through doing all that was like there was a bunch of people on the call. Some were younger, some were older, and they were obviously getting their pump for the first time or like changing on to a different type of pump. And then the amount of questions and like almost like panic style questions. Oh, but what if this happens? And what if this happens? And what if that's not quite right? And how does this work? And this work? And this work? And I was like, is this what, like, the majority of people that get diagnosed with this disease live like? Because
Yeah.
I'm literally just like, I'm just gonna wing it and see what happens, and then we'll just figure it out as we go.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
but yeah, like, I mean, yes, to answer your question, yes, that is how so many people start because there's so much fear that goes into this diagnosis because either I think it's like on two different perspectives, right? So either, at least this is how it is over in the States, either you are getting with a really good medical team that is coming at you with compassion, empathy, and care, or you're getting on the other side where a medical team or your endocrinologist, whatever it is not coming at you with compassion, empathy, and basically just you're just checking off the boxes and sending you out the door, right? Like those are literally the two situations that happen. And unfortunately, more often than not, it when you start, you get with this individual because they don't have tons of time for you. And because of that, you don't get the actual time to ask the questions. You don't get the actual time to feel confident in what you're doing because there's so much being thrown at you with very little clarity of what that actually is. So it hurts me to my soul because I went through the same thing. It hurts me to my soul to hear those conversations or those people that are just struggling mentally because they're either coming because the doctors are also coming at them with fear. Like, If you don't take care of this, then you're going to lose a leg, you're going to lose a limb, you're going
Yeah.
to have a complication. And it's like that's not the way. There's already all this mental trauma when you get diagnosed. Like that's not what we need. We don't need those types of conversations in that moment.
No. No, I think, like, it's good to know that managing your blood sugar is important because if you neglect it, then that's what you're gonna deal with down the line.
Yeah.
To kind of, like, mentally prepare you or at least show you the importance of actually doing it. But, yeah, I think this is why, like, here they basically try and give you the prescribed kind of start, and then they gradually feed you more information. But I don't know who everybody else is, but, like, whether you have to physically contact your care team to actually get them to do stuff. But, like, I don't speak to mine. Like, I had to start, like, a few grouped up sessions where I would be seeing a dietitian or seeing my nurse or whatever, but, like,
Mm.
that's it. And then I spoke to my nurse on the phone when I chose what insulin pump I wanted. And my dietitian, I'll email sometimes if I have a question or, like, sometimes, like, hormonally, my blood sugar goes funny for, like, women.
Yeah.
So I had to ask her some questions, but honestly, the majority of the education on diabetes that I have personally was all from social media, watching other people go through it. And then when I did my first cut, like, for weight loss 2 years ago, I think it was, I was going to Marbella for my friend's hen do, and I'd done a cut, and all of a sudden I'm having all these hypos left, right, and centre. I was like, "This is so strange." And I found a girl on Instagram who is a fitness coach, and she's explaining that as you lose body fat, your insulin sensitivity increases. So you actually need to reduce your background rate and reduce your carb ratio because you're just not needing the same amount.
Yeah.
And that was life changing because I was like, oh, I had no idea. So then I started manipulating my rates and being like, okay, now I've got it. And then when you start to notice hypos are more frequent, I'm like, okay, I need to drop them again. And then when you go out of the diet and you're back to normal again, you need to pay attention to the high blood sugars to then readjust things back up.
Mm.
And that was really helpful for me anyway to, like, figure out how to do it in the fitness world. Because as someone who's really into fitness, I did not want my diabetes to stop me from living my normal life. And I think it was 3, no, not even, like 6 or 8 weeks post-diagnosis, I was itching to get back to fitness.
Mm.
I was like, "I can't sit on my bum." I'm just one of those people, I can't sit still. So, I was talking to my dietitian about it. She's like, "Yeah, yeah, you can go back, like, gradually and, like, figure it out." But, like, it took me a while, but having to just take my Skittles to the gym with me, and then, like, you're mid-set and all of a sudden you have a low and you have to sit and eat your Skittles and then, like, wait for a few minutes to feel a bit better and then, like, go again. And then eventually started kind of figuring out to have a wee carby snack or not start training until my blood sugar was a certain level. And yeah, a lot of trial and error, but I guess it depends if you're confident enough to try and do these things. You
Mm.
can learn a lot about how your body works. But like you said, because of all the fear that gets put into you when you get diagnosed, a lot of people don't have the confidence
Yeah.
to do it independently. And then the care teams don't care enough to go
Yeah.
into that much detail.
Yeah, there's at least in the States, I always talk about time. Like, what is the main issue with not getting the education from your care team? It's for us, it's time because they don't like when you go to see your endocrinologist over here, like literally your appointment is scheduled for 15 or 20 minutes.
Oh,
E-
really?
even if you are newly diagnosed. Now, sometimes they'll spend more time with you if you absolutely 100% need it and you're advocating for yourself. But from most of the time, like they're trying to get you in and get you out because they've got 40 other patients lined up right after you for the rest of the day.
That's
And
crazy.
it is it's crazy how it works. And then so there's time. And then the other piece, which I think is is the global issue all over the world is follow up. There's not really follow up
No,
whatsoever.
there's none.
There's no follow-up, right? So even if you do get with a great medical team, care team, and they are able to get you some education within the time frame, they don't follow up, right? So what you were saying where you because you experimented because you were doing trial and error, you figured out like, okay, my insulin sensitivity is increasing. I gotta increase my background insulin. I gotta increase or decrease my background insulin, decrease my insulin to carb ratio. That's not taught to us. It's
No.
like it's taught to us, here's your insulin to carb ratio, here's your background insulin, depending on what systems you're on, and that's it. They don't tell you that, okay, well, you worked out in the morning, you might be a little bit more insulin sensitive, so you might need a little bit less insulin to carb ratio, right? So it's like my insulin to carb ratio is like 1 to 10 is my standard. I'm not
Mhm.
really always 1 to 10 because I'm paying attention to how insulin sensitive I've been over the past 2 or 3 days. What's getting ready to happen in the next 2 or 3 days? Do I feel sick? Am I getting sick? Am I hydrated? I'm thinking about all of the other factors and variables in the equation. So then I understand, okay, either I'm going to be 1 to 8 or I'm going to be one between 1 to 8 and 1 to 12. So I might need uptick, downtick. And that's just not taught to us. That's the type of thinking of like I might have to go 2 units lower than I usually do in my insulin to carb ratio. That's just not taught to us.
It's sad, really. And, like, even for me, like, this year is the first year I'll be going on a hot holiday with an insulin pump. Because before I was on my injections, so I just had my needles. We have, like, a pen.
Yeah.
So I had, like, a pen in my beach bag, and then it got exposed to the sun sometimes, and I never really knew much about this. I
Mm.
knew, like, obviously the sun can denature your insulin, but I didn't really understand, like, enough about it. I just heard it somewhere. I don't know if it was taught to me or if it was something I saw someone talk about on social media, but I remember using that pen for, like, the rest of the day, I think, and having ridiculously high blood sugars. Was like, "What's going on?" And it wasn't till later I was like, "Oh, that pen's been in the 40-degree heat. So
Mhm.
obviously the insulin doesn't work anymore." So then now I'm like, "Oh, wait, I'm gonna be going on holiday with an insulin pump on my arm, which means that that insulin's gonna get spoiled, and I can't
Mhm.
change my pump every day." But, I mean, nobody tells you anything about that, so that's probably something I'm gonna have to either find out for myself or follow up with them to get them to give me the information that I need.
How long is your holiday? How long is that gonna be? How long is the
Eh,
vacation?
12 days, including travel, 10 days there.
And then what's your
The
daily
last
what's
40
your
degrees.
oh, oh yeah. What's your daily insulin uptake of your bolus of your like insulin to carb ratio, your corrections? Do you know?
Uh, I don't know off the top of my head, actually. Yeah, they're all
So
programmed in my pump.
yeah, so that I would look at that because that's going to give you some insight on how much more insulin you might need. The other thing I would do if you're going to be out in the heat and you've got your Omnipod on, okay, is I would have a backup. I would talk to your doctor and have them write you a small script for pens. And then you can go on Amazon, you can go to the store and buy these cooling containers for insulin pens. And that way you can just
Okay.
put that in your bag and you have backup insulin in case the one that's in your pod heats and goes bad. So that's an option too. And they also have for vials. If you use vials to fill up your pump, they have like cooling like protection for vials as well. So that just those.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The funny with the vial situation, because that's the other thing that goes wonky with me. Is
Mm.
someone actually commented on one of my TikToks about my filling up my pump because I was filling it up with a pen. And they were like, "Oh, I'm getting the Omnipod soon. I thought we got vials." I was like, "Oh, we're supposed to." But for some reason, because my script has my pens on it, my pump on it, my vials on it, I asked for more insulin and I even said it on the like recording. I was like, vial for pump. And then another time I did it online. So it was all like written out. I clicked the vial and every single time I go and pick up my script, it's pens. And I thought, you know what, bugger it. Like, I'm not even gonna bother trying to fight this anymore. I've went in
Yeah.
there till I'm blue in the face, shouting at receptionists to be like, tell me I need a vial for my pump. Oh, well, just take the pens off your script then. And I'm like, no, because I still need them to be there. So when I need them, I can access them. You can't
Mhm.
just take them away. I was like, why can't the doctor just read? Like, I don't get it. Like, if they got that much to do that they skim past it that quick and just assume what type of insulin you need.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a I hate this to always sit here and rag on our medical teams because we do need them. Oh, they're too busy. They don't have time. In lieu of that piece for me, I have done what you've done. and experimented with everything. Experimented with every situation, every scenario that I've ever come up against. I have tried to replicate the goods and even sometimes replicate the bads to figure out what works because they don't have the time capacity or resources to help us live
No.
day to day with it. We need them for scripts. We need them to help us with ratios if we need to change stuff. They're very intelligent, but we have to do the work day to day.
Yeah. I feel like the people that seem to have a better capacity to manage the condition are people who do like what we did and try and experiment or do some research on your own, whether that's finding other people who are online who are also dealing with the same condition, seeing what they say, or anything that's actually on the internet. And there's a girl that I've been speaking to on TikTok, and she's started off like doing a fitness coach sort of thing. So she's got a
Mm.
coach and she's trying to like lift weights and trying to change her body composition, but she's diabetic and she's really struggling. And she's like, I'm trying to Google like what to do, and there's so much conflicting information on the internet. She's like, I just don't know. And her coach isn't specific. So they're just a fitness coach. They don't understand anything to do with this disease. But
Mhm.
she's had a really hard week with her blood sugars, and she was saying that like she doesn't know what to do and blah blah blah. And the coach is going, oh, if you're having loads of hypos, just have a glass of orange juice with your breakfast. And I'm like, we're both obviously she said the same thing. We're both sitting there like, that's not gonna help. Like that's gonna make the situation 10 times worse. But again, that's just the understanding
Yeah.
of people who don't know. And I think it's one of those things that's difficult because you do, as a diabetic, need to have either really independent management, or if you're going into fitness, finding someone who either has a lot of experience or is also diabetic and knows how to deal with the ins
Yeah.
and outs of the fitness world with this condition, because it's a lot harder than normal, like other people who are not diabetic that can just go and do the cut and the bulk and the lifting weights and the cardio, and they just get it all sorted, and it's hard for everybody, but like at least they don't have to worry about, I've perfectly managed all my macros for the day. I went to bed and had a hypo, and now I need to eat 15 grams of carbs that aren't in my plan, which then puts me over my calories. And if that happens frequently, then they're panicking because they're like, oh, now I'm not on a deficit anymore.
Mhm.
So I can see like all the issues that kind of come with that. It's just quite hard for people, I think, a lot of people probably just give up and think, well,
Yeah.
I just can't do that because the condition won't allow it.
Yeah. It is a challenging thing when you're trying to find someone that you can align with and can help you with not just the specific of what you want, but also the other things that are going on in your life. But I think that the important piece to that is that's why there's well-rounded, holistic type idea people that can take the whole entire person and focus on trying to help that entire person instead of just one specific aspect of their life.
Yeah.
So,
A
yeah,
personalized approach is definitely the way forward.
yeah, 100%. Um, what's been the biggest, the most impactful thing that you've learned about yourself, diabetes, living with the condition?
I guess just like the strength that you have in your mindset and
Okay.
ability, and just kind of be like, I don't know, a lot of people, I guess, would maybe well, when I first got diagnosed and when I meet people now who maybe realise for the first time that I'm diabetic and they go, oh, does that mean you need to inject yourself? Oh, that couldn't be me. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have a choice. It's
Mhm.
that or death. Like, you're going to end up with blood sugars so high, you will kill yourself. Like, you don't
Mhm.
have a choice. And, like, it's little things like that that you then realize actually you're quite a strong person when you have to go through any sort of diagnosis like that, autoimmune disease or other different conditions. Like, you just have to kind of adapt, change your life, adapt to little things, learn to live with it, learn to make compromises, or that you can't do certain things that you used to be able to do, or maybe you can, but you just have to change the way that you do them to try and manage the condition at the same time. So I think for me, it was more like just recognizing how strong I am, really, and just being like that. I just kind of was like, right, okay, that's me now. I'm diabetic. Like, let's go. Like, let me learn as much as I can about it. I want to use it to my power and not feel like victim mentality almost. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be like that. I want to be strong. Like, I'm going to learn as much as I can through the professionals that I've been given access to, the internet, other people who also live with the condition, and just learn as much as I possibly can to give myself as much knowledge as possible. And then that way I can manage my condition in a way that's going to help me live the life I want to live rather than feel like I'm on a back foot, if that makes sense.
Done. Yeah. Yes, that makes complete sense, and it's those types of personalities, Stephanie, that win and succeed in diabetes. Because there's one thing you said in there that I think it's really important to highlight is the victim mentality, right? We both came from fitness. We're both in fitness. One thing that really irritates me is the victim mentality. Like, all the world's against you. It's
Yeah.
like the world's not against you. You just have to pull up your socks, pull up your bootstraps and go and
Yeah.
figure it out. And that is like diabetes to the T. You have to roll up your sleeves and figure it out. Whether you're going to figure it out by yourself or whether you're going to do something like you did and just follow a bunch of professionals or follow other people living with it and just learn from what they're doing and ask questions in social media, or whether you're going to hire a coach or whether you're going to hire someone else that's going to be able to support and help you. Whatever you're going to do, like you have to hone in and try to figure out what's going to work. And I think for me that's the biggest message, because I did not do that. And I spent 3.5 years in having a really hard time with the condition, mentally and physically, because I didn't, because I didn't think that it was an issue. I was in denial. I had depression and hid it from everybody. So it's like I feel for those individuals that are going through that perspective of dealing with this condition.
It's hard because it does change your whole outlook and just like your whole life in general. Like, it's one of those things that's like you do kind of, I guess, just have to try and put it aside and just be like, right, this is now my hand I've been dealt, and it's up
Mhm.
to me how we move forward. And it's hard. And yeah, I feel bad for people when they don't have the mentality nailed, because it's just challenging in every aspect. Physically, like, you're not able to do as much, or you have to learn how to do things like go on a walk. Like, you can't just go out and mindlessly get your steps in, or, be like, I'm hungry. That's the one thing that used to get me. And it still does sometimes. I'm like, I'm hungry. I want to eat. But no, I have to think about it and be like, right, what am I going to eat? When am I going to eat it? How much of it am I going to eat? Let me track it all so that I can put my carbs into my pump, so that I can wait for 15 minutes. But then how long is it going to take me to cook my food? And that's what happened to me for my dinner. Like, I was at 4.2 and I was like, I'm going to be on it. It's going to take me like 5, 10 minutes to make that. It'll be fine. Took my insulin. Took me way longer than I thought. So I ended up with a low blood sugar because I shouldn't really have pre-bolused for my dinner, but I thought I was gonna. And then I had to sit and wait it out till my dinner caught up with my insulin, because I was like, I can't treat this because I'll just go high.
But but the inside of that, right? That is a crappy situation that we all go through, but the inside of that is the important piece. Because you had the insight to say, okay, well, I'm hungry. I did pre-bolus. I'm going low. Another person that doesn't have that insight would just start treating for the low. And then 2 hours later, they're going to be really, really high.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that what you just said is really important, Steph, because you had the insight not to treat for the low. You had the insight to wait and just be patient and be calm in the moment and let your dinner, you know, start working and bring your blood sugar up.
Which it did. Like, quite quickly as well. So now I'm sitting perfectly in range, and I'm like, if I did treat it, I would probably be up in like 14, 15 land by now.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, let's move a little bit into the fitness space, because this is the space that you've competed in, you're in right now. What's been the most impactful thing with keeping your blood sugar stable during your training sessions?
Well, sometimes at the start, because when I got my pod at Christmas time, just before, that was when I started prep. So before that, I'd just been doing my injections and doing my cardio and just making sure that when I went to the gym, I had sweets with me on the Stairmaster and that I had my blood sugar. I used to always try and make sure it was like 7-ish before I
Mm,
started, just to make sure that I wasn't going to go low. I'm also a spin instructor, so I take spin 5 times a week. Well, at that point, I did as well. But then with the high intensity exercise, it was like learning how different types of
mm,
cardio affect your blood sugar. Because so many people would be like, "Oh, how can you do that without going low?" And I'm like, "Low? I go high. I actually have to come off the spin bike and correct my blood sugar because the high intensity training
mhm,
puts you high." But like then when you go on a stairmaster, because it's low levels of cardio, you take it down. So it's like kind of learning which one does what, and then trying to make sure that before I top spin, my insulin levels, I mean, my sugar levels were a bit lower. And then when if I was going on the Stairmaster, I wanted them to be a little bit higher. So sometimes I would have like either half of the insulin for like my pre workout, so that by the time I finished my training, the levels were high enough to get me through the cardio that I had to do, or I would just, like I said, make sure that my blood sugars were sitting at a certain kind of level. And in the mornings, I find that I get that feet to floor situation
mm,
where like you wake up and as soon as I'm awake, which my endocrinologist says it's just hormones, it's cortisol, it's normal, everyone gets it, but we just notice it because we have our monitors on. But he's like, normal people have that too, where like that's how your body wakes itself up. So it puts that blood sugar up higher with the cortisol being released, and that's what's going on. But I used to use it to my advantage and be like, that plus caffeine in the morning used to send me high. So I used to get up in the morning and have a coffee, not take any insulin, and then go and do my cardio while I knew I was more resistant so that it would fix it and I wouldn't have to worry about going low. So just kind of like recognizing the patterns and trying to figure out when to do certain things worked quite well for me. And then when I got my pod, I was on Pret and I used to use the activity mode initially. And then eventually I kind of didn't need that anymore. But sometimes again, like if I was lower than 7 and had to go on the stairs, I would put activity mode on. But sometimes I would just manage to do it without it. It just kind of varied on where I was sitting before I started. And then I just made sure I had my sweets so that if I did go low, I could just eat them. But then again, with me, I'm one of those mind over matter people, which don't know if this is probably not the healthiest thing to do, but if I was on the Stairmaster and I was like halfway through my workout or had like 5, 10 minutes left and I hit a hypo, I would just eat my sweets and keep walking. I wouldn't stop and come off and wait the 15 minutes till I went back to normal and then go
mm.
back on. I'd be like, I'm just going to keep going. Because in my head, I'm like, the more my body's active, the quicker the sugar is going to get into my blood anyway. It will be faster if I keep moving than it is if I sit. But also, I want to get this cardio done. So, like, I'm just going to power through the low blood sugar and then come off
Yeah,
and I'll later. But yeah, that's don't think that's very recommended.
yeah. Well, but the good thing about that, or the interesting thing about that
Mm,
is how you utilize the tools that you have and how you attack all the variables and factors. Right?
mm,
That's the most important thing. So you've taken all of these variables and kind of been able to figure out how do you implement that and manipulate your blood sugars while you're exercising, which so many people don't understand or know how to do. I think the other funny thing is like how different everybody's body is.
yeah,
Me, when I do high intensity, like I plummet every single time. Every single
really.
time when I do high intensity. When I do strength training, I jack up every single time. I'll start rising every single time. So it's like I
I'm the
think that
opposite.
yeah, so it's an interesting thing of like there's not one size fits all, which so many people will talk about like, "Oh, I do this and I do this. You should just do this." I'm like, "Okay, cool. That's awesome, but that doesn't work for me because I actually go the opposite way." Right? So I think the body is so interesting in how intuitive it is and
Mm.
how all of us really are unique selves. That was a tongue twister.
Yeah, it's good. I like the fact that everything's so individual because it just makes it more interesting. But at the same time, it's like, I guess that's one of the good things about having the confidence to try and
Mm.
figure it out. Because once you do try and figure it out, then you do kind of, one, become more confident as you go forward, but you learn a lot more. Because if your care team are sitting there telling you this X means this and X means that, and that doesn't work for you, and you're too scared to like attempt to do something different, then you're never going to learn how to do that said activity or manage that situation because you're being given a cookie cutter example of how to do it and your body doesn't work like that. And they don't know how your body works. And if you don't try and experiment, you will never learn.
Yeah.
So then you're just kind of stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the hardest part too, is like when you feel like you're trying and you can't figure it out and you feel stuck. I think that
Mm,
I remember those emotions very vividly of like,
yes.
why doesn't this work? I worked yesterday. Oh shoot. Now I don't know what to do. And then like the distrust every single time that you can't figure something out just starts decreasing and lowers your confidence. It's just that's the worst
Yeah.
place to be.
I remember all that used to happen to me as well. I used to get really pissed off if I woke up. I
Mm.
used to have a similar thing for breakfast. And then one morning I would take insulin for it and it would be fine. And the next morning I would wake up and take the exact same amount of insulin and eat the exact same amount of food with the exact same like foods. Like it was weighed out and tracked to the gram. And it would have the opposite. I would go high or I would have a hypo. And I was just thinking, how is this possible? It's the same food at the same time with the same insulin on a different day. But there's just too many variables to your blood sugar, which is a bit annoying. But that used to really annoy me. But I feel like going I don't even know when it switched because it wasn't like a choice that I made or a mindset thing that I did on purpose. But I feel like nowadays when I try and explain what I do with my diabetes, it might just be the fact that I'm on a pump and I now have, because I've got that controlled loop or whatever it's called, it kind of, I don't have to worry about it as much because I know the pump's there to fix any issues that I
Yeah.
don't pick up on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's very much like I learned not to try and control it because it doesn't, you can't control it. And when you try, that's when you just get frustrated and that affects the mindset and how you deal with it. I just kind of like deal with it in the moment. I'm like, oh, I'm high now, I'll correct. I'm low now, I'll eat and just kind of move with it.
Mhm.
And that really helped me
Yeah.
because the minute you let go of attempting to control it to that extent, that's when it kind of shifts and you kind of like just go with the flow and you're like, right, okay, I know how to deal with every situation that happens enough that I can just move with it.
Mhm.
And then, like I was saying this to the care team after we were on the pump for a while, and people were asking, they was like checking up on us. How are you getting on? What have you noticed? Do you like it? What's going on? And I honestly was like, I forget sometimes that I have this condition because the pump does so much more work than I had to do myself before. So now I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't even know I was high because the pump fixed it. And you look on the graph and you're like, oh, I never noticed that because the pump's done it itself. And because you didn't get the symptoms, you were like, oh, okay, cool. And then you just forget that you have a condition like that. And it's nice to
Mhm.
sometimes have a little bit more hours in the day where you're not constantly thinking about it because
Yeah.
it's mentally draining to have
Yeah.
to manage that because we basically have to be an organ.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's hard. It's hard to have to feel like you wanna control it, but then when you get so overwhelmed with that, like, I loved what you were saying about the control. It's like, it's you don't wanna have to try to control it, but then on the flip side, you don't want it to control you. And I
Mhm.
think that that's where a lot of people are, is like they get into this space of like it's controlling their life. It's controlling every decision. It's controlling their relationships. It's controlling how they just move throughout the day. And for
Yeah,
me, that's such a sad place to be. I don't want anything to control me. And I love the fact that you are in the space where sometimes you even forget that you have diabetes. You forget that you I remember when I was on the pump, when I was on the Omnipod, sometimes I would forget that I even had with anything on
yeah,
because everything would just be regulated. So that's where I want everyone to get to, is just not having to feel like diabetes is controlling their life.
yeah. It's a nice place to be. I
Mhm.
think even though you do sometimes have to deal, sorry, my cat's very loud.
Mm.
Um, It's a nice place to be to, like, figure it out, and it's never the same, I don't think. Like, even when you figure it out, you're not really figured it out, you're just kind of like, you know roughly what to do, how your body reacts to certain situations, and the rest of it you just tackle as and when you need to, and just I don't know, I just don't let it get to me. I don't think of it as I'm like, "Oh, here we go, another low blood sugar," or "Now I'm high again." I'm just like, "Well, I'm high, I'll correct it. I'm low, I'll eat sweets." Like, and then sometimes I think of it in a good way, but I'm like, for example, when I was on Prep, and I'm thinking, all these other people, they don't get to eat sugar because 'cause they're on Prep. Like, they don't have that. The meal plan doesn't give you sweets. Like, you don't get to eat that kind of stuff. So they're all on prep for God knows how long. Like, my prep was like 14 weeks, and I did fit model, and people who are in bikini to get way leaner. And they're on prep for 16 to 20 weeks. And I'm like, imagine all of that time without sugar. I'm sitting there being like, I'm craving Nutella. Oh, look, I've got low blood sugar. What a shame. Nutella jar. Here we go. Like, I'll fix it because I can. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, diabetes is doing something for me now because
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to eat that, and I can because it's medicine." And
Yeah.
it was a nice kind of reframe in certain
Yeah.
points and points where I was like, "Actually, this isn't the worst place to be."
Yeah, that is a good reframe though. That's a really cool reframe. As we get to the end here, what's 1 to 3 pieces of advice that you could give to the listeners that they could potentially put into action right now? That's maybe worked for you or you've seen work for other people or whatever it might be.
I would probably say, like, try and let go
Mm,
a little bit and not I don't know, whenever I've had my Dexcom, because I have a Libre now, but when I had my Dexcom on my phone, I had a widget set up on the home screen. I was, like, checking it every 10, 15 seconds, like, constantly checking it because I was on injections. So if that's you or you're on the pump or whatever it is, I would just be like, try and let go a little bit and just kind of put your device away and not manically check it as much and have a bit more confidence in your ability to manage the disease. And also, yeah, so like letting go of control a little bit and just work with the situations as they arise. And if you, another thing that I used to do actually that really helped was if you particularly don't want to go low or you don't like going high or you have symptoms that come up that are really uncomfortable, set your alarms at different levels. Like, don't do the default. You can go into the settings on the alarms on your sensors and tweak them. So if you don't like feeling above 10, for example, I'm not sure what that is for
mhm,
Americans, but like I would just tweak it. So like for me, my alarm would go off 3.9 or lower or 14 and above. So I changed it. So I was like, I want to know when I'm at 10. I also want to know when I'm at 5, because if you get to that point, you don't have to suffer with the highs or the lows because
mm,
you can intervene before it happens. And for me, that was something that really helped before I got my pump and I had the hybrid closed loop. Like just resetting your alarms really, I saved so many hypos from doing that. It was so much better.
yeah,
And then also just, I guess, waiting the time for your bolus. I don't know if that's just a me thing or, but I think everyone's the same. Where like, if you just wait it out before you eat, then it literally makes so much difference. Like, see people like when you sit down to eat and you're like, oh, I didn't take my insulin enough time, or I forgot, or whatever, and you take it at the same time as you eat, and then you have to deal with the consequences. That's hard. And then on that same note, learning or not learning, but just like realizing why you're having the reaction you're having. So, like me with my dinner, I knew that I just pre-bolus too early, and that's why I was low. So knowing in that specific situation, don't treat it because you're just going to give yourself all the up, down mountain
mm,
range of like
love
problems
that.
going forward. So just
Yeah,
kind of like wait it out and then kind of deal with it after rather than panicking and
yeah,
then creating more problems.
yeah. The pre-bolus thing, I feel like there's 2 things that really hammer someone's blood sugars and make them spike when post eating. That's the first one for sure is not pre-bolusing. So many people don't pre-bolus and don't give the insulin time to catch up to that breakdown of the food and that blood sugar spike. And I would say the other one is not giving yourself enough insulin, not being aggressive enough. A lot of people aren't aggressive enough. They'll say, "Oh, well, I'm at 100. I have to do a 15-minute pre-bolus, right? So, I'm not gonna take that big. I'm not gonna do a big pre-bolus, or I'm not gonna take as much insulin. Be aggressive." What I always say with highs versus lows, this saved me so much headache. It completely changed my mental health when I started reframing and thinking about this. Okay, so many of us hate lows. They suck. I mean, we'll just be honest. Low blood sugars, they're not fun. But for me, what is the easiest to combat? A low blood sugar or a high blood sugar?
Low, always a low.
Oh, low. 100% is a low, right? So if
Blood
you're a
sugar's so annoying, and sometimes you have to inject or consistently take more insulin and more insulin and more insulin, and you're just like, how many correction factors does this need? But a low blood sugar is so easy.
That is so easy. But people don't understand that. People are scared and fear the lows, that they won't be aggressive. They won't push the envelope a little bit more to get them back down to their target.
Mhm.
So I think those two things are just so important. The other thing I wanted to say for all the listeners, everyone that's in the US, because Stephanie's talking about she's at 5 and then she's at 10. So the conversion for us in the US is basically 90 to 180, right? So that's her range, her target range, or her in range, her target range. So just so everyone understands where she actually is at. Oh, that's funny. Stephanie, thank you so much for doing this. This was fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your insight on living with diabetes, giving us your insight on exercise and how you manage and navigate and manipulate the blood sugars during exercise. We really appreciate all of your insights that you kind of gave today.
Oh, thank you. It was so nice to be here.
Yeah. That was great. So, everybody, thank you so much. I'll make sure that Stephanie's Instagram handle, her TikTok handle is in the show notes. So if you want to just jump on, ask her questions, follow her page. I've been following her page since we connected. She's got tons of great stuff on her page. So make sure, especially if you're in fitness and you want to exercise more, maybe you're female that wants to go into fitness and maybe do some competitions, and this is going to be a great resource for you. So, Stephanie, again, thank you so much. And everybody, I will see you guys next time.